The worst part of school isn't the classes, it isn't homework, it isn't even when you have a new seating arrangement and you get put next to the kid who refuses to shower. Because the worst part of school was the moment you sat down at lunch, looked at your tray of food the lunch lady made, and realized if you eat this, your next meal is gonna be with the queen. The school cafeteria is a place where crazy things happen. And I can say that because one time we were served a meal so bad that it started a food fight. But before we can even talk about the food fight, we gotta talk about how every day would go in school when lunch started. Because the second the bell rang signaling that it was lunchtime, you would have thought the Hunger Games just began with how fast students would be running out of their classrooms all just to get some day-old pizza that had mold as the topping. And then you would flush it all down with chocolate milk so thick you could use it as slime. Now the reason everyone would run to lunch like they were trying out for the Olympics was because you wanted to be at the front of the line. This was very important because if you weren't at the front of the line, by the time you were up, they might have already run out of all the good food. Or I guess the not disgusting food, because none of it was actually good. And also, if you didn't get there early, you would have to be waiting in line for half of lunch while the rest of your friends are already sitting down, rizzing up the girls. And by rizzing up the girls, I mean looking at them for a split second and then saying to your buddies, "Bro, she definitely wants me." I remember on my very first day of middle school, the bell rang and immediately kids are sprinting outside of class like the light just went green at an F1 race. They're heading towards the cafeteria trying to be first, and I'm just sitting there at my desk still, wondering why everyone is going so fast. Like we're all gonna be getting the same food anyway, right? Well, I arrived to the cafeteria and I'm at the very back of this long line. Now keep in mind, this was my first day at a new school. I didn't know many of the students there, but back at my old school, how it worked was no matter where you were in line, you were getting the same food. Like they never ran out of it. So I'm standing at the end of this super long line and I asked the person in front of me if they knew what the food options were for today. And this kid's response is something I will never forget because he looks me in the eyes, dead serious, and goes, "It's either pasta or the mystery cup." The way he said it obviously made me curious, so I go, "Well, what's the mystery cup?" But he just responds with, "Hopefully you don't have to find out." He turns back toward his group of friends and starts talking to them. So now I'm in line waiting, super curious about what this mystery cup could be. But I should have just stayed curious because finally, when it was my turn to get food, I go up to the lunch lady and without asking what I would like or not like on my plate, instead, she just puts this cup on it. No pasta in sight, just the cup. And at first, I was excited. I love the mystery flavor of Airheads because you don't know what it is. And that's so exciting. So I'm sure I'll like this. But then I actually looked at the cup. And it was gray. And no, the cup itself wasn't gray. Whatever food or liquid, I don't even know what you would call it, but whatever was inside of that cup was gray. It literally looked like cement. Now, although it did look like something a Fallout character would have to eat just to survive, I still wanted to try it because don't judge a food by its looks, right? Wrong. Always judge a food by its looks. Because when I took that first bite of this mystery cup, you know what it tasted like? I don't even know if this makes sense, but somehow it literally tasted like the color gray. It was a little bit salty, weirdly chunky, and had no positive flavor to it. After that first time trying it, I knew I would never try it again. I remember one time after this, the lunch lady gave me the mystery cup again because they were out of all the other food, and I immediately just threw it away. But a teacher saw me do this and she went, "Tyler, why are you throwing your food away? You know there's people out there starving, right?" "Mrs. Garcia, I promise you eating that would kill someone quicker than starvation would." So what actually ended up being inside that cup? To this day, I still have no idea. And neither does anyone I ever asked about it. I guess that's why they call it the mystery cup. But you know what the most diabolical part of lunch was? It wasn't the mystery cup. It wasn't the chalky milk. Nah, it was the students who actually liked eating this stuff. Yes, these people actually existed. These criminals were the people I knew I couldn't trust. Because how are you gonna look at something that looks like this on your plate and then just be like, "Oh man, I can't wait to eat this." And okay, fine, I understand. You're starving, so you gotta eat something. That's acceptable. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the people who would literally go out of their way to get more cafeteria food. There was this one dude at my school who would go to every single table at lunch asking all the students if they were gonna drink their chocolate milk. And if they weren't, he would take them. There were days where I saw that man down 7 or 8 chocolate milks like they were water. Where is he now? To be honest, after drinking all that school milk, he may no longer be with us. Oh wait, never mind. I just looked up his name on social media and apparently he works at IKEA now. Good for you, Jack. Okay, wait, I just scrolled a little bit further and it turns out he has diabetes now. I knew that milk was no good. The craziest part about school lunchtime was the fact that there was a specific type of kid in school who lived an entirely different life than the rest of us. And it was the kids whose parents made them lunch every day. Because while we were in the cafeteria actively fighting for our lives with mystery meat and pizza that tasted like cardboard, they'd casually unzip a lunchbox that looked like this, and inside it would be actual real food. Like from the outside world. Seeing a real piece of food inside school was like when I, as an American, went to Europe for the first time and saw the food there. You just look at the food you have and then think to yourself, Wait, not everyone has to suffer like this? And don't get me wrong, I like the food in America, but usually the ingredients list in this food is longer than the girls' bathroom line at school. These students who brought lunch from home never knew the fear of biting into something that was supposed to be soft and hearing a crunch sound. So if your parents made lunch for you when you were in school, go give them a hug right now. Tell them you love them, because you have no idea just how blessed you are. But the one thing, the only possible thing that was better than your parents making food for you was getting fast food during lunch. This was S tier, and I know some people might be like, Tyler, but you were just talking about how unhealthy the food in America is. Yeah, it is. But that doesn't mean I don't love it. Trust me, I've seen the videos. I know what they put in those McDonald's chicken nuggets and the fact that I'd probably lose 1 year off my life every time I eat them. But guess what? That don't stop me. I'm still gonna eat it. So there was nothing, and I mean nothing, better than getting fast food during lunchtime. It was always for a special occasion. Usually, you'd have to get pulled out of school for something like a dentist appointment, go find out you got 4 cavities and a root canal, and on your way back to school, you'd pop the big question. Mom, can we stop at McDonald's? You're just sitting there doing the speed face, waiting for her to either hit you or miraculously say yes. It all depended on her mood that day. And let me tell you, the days where she said yes were glorious. You'd pull into the McDonald's drive-thru, get your food, go back to school, and then all of a sudden, everyone was your friend now. Kids you've never seen before are treating you like royalty all because they want to fry. The kid you've only talked to because he sits next to you in math class is like, Tyler, my guy, you know I've always loved you, right? The guy who bullies you is going, bro, your outfit is fire today. And then your actual friends would just be treating everything you say like a stand-up comedy show. We could all be at lunch, and if I had a 10-count nugget from McDonald's with me, anything I said would suddenly be hilarious. I remember one time I came back from a doctor's appointment with McDonald's, and as I sat down with my friends to eat, I literally went, "What's up?" And they all started dying laughing. Right away, I knew the glazing went too far. They didn't think I was actually being funny. They just wanted those nuggets. And speaking of my mom buying me food, when I was in school, my parents would give me money every morning for lunch because unfortunately, the cafeteria food isn't free. Yes, shocking, I agree. They should be paying us to eat that food, not charging us $3.50. So at first, when she would give me the money every day, I would spend it at school like she told me to. But after a while, I realized I have free will. So I said, hold on a second, why would I spend $4 on pizza that tastes like it's suppressed when I could just save the money and be hungry for an extra few hours? Then I just go home and eat something better there anyway. So every day from this point on, I would just pocket the $4 my mom gave me, and just like that, I was stacking up bread. I was saving up for a PlayStation, calculating it in my head. Okay, if I don't buy lunch for 100 days, that should be enough to afford the PlayStation. I did this for weeks without any issues until one random day, my mom is going through my backpack because she ran out of gum and decided mine was community property. And suddenly, she stops and sees this big wad of cash. She starts counting it, and it's around $50. And then I see her starting to do her thinking face, which is never a good sign. And what is she thinking? Well, because I'm jobless, she's wondering, what's the one place this money could have came from? So she looks at me and just goes, Tyler, why do you have this money? And I knew I had to lock in, so I said, well, you see, Mom, I'm somewhat of a businessman, if I may say so myself. You're not spending the money I give you for lunch every day, are you? No, I'm not. From that moment on, my parents lost all trust in me with physical cash. No more money in the morning. Instead, my mom started writing checks directly to the school from my lunch account. And just like that, my dreams of buying a PlayStation were officially over. Now we gotta talk about the people responsible for me even making this video. The lunch ladies. I used to view the lunch ladies at my school as Gordon Ramsay. I thought since they were responsible for making the food for hundreds of kids, they must have went to school to be a chef, had a degree in cooking or something like that. But it turns out, after doing a little bit of research, you don't need any credentials to become a lunch lady. All you gotta do is have a pulse. That's it. Well, actually, you don't even need to have that because I had a lunch lady in middle school who died while working one day. Rest in peace to her, by the way. But I remember the day my lunch lady passed away vividly because the ambulance trucks are showing up, everyone's talking about what happened, and a student next to me goes, yo, why are there ambulances here? Oh, they think one of the lunch ladies passed away. He pauses for a second and then goes, dang, well, is it still gonna be pizza day, at least? In case you were wondering, yes, it was still pizza day. But I do find it odd that his first thought after finding out someone just dropped dead at our school was, what's the lunch gonna be? But this leads me right to the day everyone would always look forward to in school. Because sure, you may have had the mystery cup of gabagool, the green beans in a pool of liquid, and the chicken nuggets so undercooked that they're still saying cock-a-doodle-doo every morning. But this one day was supposed to make up for all of that. What day am I talking about? Pizza day. The promise of pizza day was the only reason you believed the school might not actually hate you. You would daydream about it. The crust, the sauce, the melted cheese. Pizza was the one food they couldn't mess up. right? Like, it's pizza, the most basic, universally loved food. Usually pizza is one of those foods that, even if it's bad compared to other pizzas, it's still good because it's pizza. Well, not at my school, because I don't even think you could call the brick of ice cold bread with tomatoes they gave us pizza. The first problem was that it was shaped like the letter U instead of triangular. That should be enough to give whoever made this life in prison. The crust was also stiff as a board. I remember one time, a kid tore off the crust of the pizza, then tore off a piece of his lunch tray and took a bite using the lunch tray as crust. We all looked at him like he was crazy, but it seemed like he enjoyed that bite more than the actual crust. Did this also happen to be the same kid that ate glue in my class? Yes, so I wouldn't trust his word fully. But if you're thinking, Tyler, like you said, sure the pizza wasn't great, but at the end of the day, it's still pizza. Well, no, actually, it wasn't. Because our pizza sauce was really sweet, like a little too sweet, to the point where all of us students started to think this might not even be pizza sauce at all. So we started doing some research, asking teachers, staff, anyone who might know the answer to what this pizza sauce was really made out of. And when we found the answer from a student whose mom was one of the lunch ladies, not the one that died, rest in peace again, but it turns out the pizza sauce was actually ketchup. Yes. They used ketchup in the pizza. Why did they do that instead of just using actual pizza sauce? I don't know. Maybe it was cheaper. Maybe the school was just trying to torture us, but it was ketchup. So if not even the pizza was good, was there any food in the cafeteria that wasn't horrible? Well, at my school, there was two. And one of them was taco day. Because I went to school in California, and if there's one food that people in this state know how to make, it's tacos. So at my school, taco day was actually kind of delicious. Matter of fact, it was so delicious that it caused a food fight. Because taco day was always on Tuesdays. So when you walked into school that day, knowing you still had 4 long, miserable days ahead of you before the weekend came, the one thing that made you feel a little bit better was the fact that we were getting tacos. So on one Tuesday, I'm at school and it's going just like any normal day until I get to my physical education class. You may wonder what this has to do with lunch, but just stay with me. You'll understand in a second. So on this day, my PE class had the championship for the basketball tournament we were playing at this time. My squad was already out because I just picked all my homies to be on my team, and we would rather all just be taking shots like this than actually trying to win. But the two teams that were still in it hated each other. And when I say they hated each other, I really just mean that the team captains on each team hated each other. Why? Because the team captain of one team was dating this girl that was also in our PE class. But before they became a couple, guess who this girl used to date? That's right, the other team captain. And the girl was gonna be watching this game. So they've had this beef for a while, and you could tell by how they were acting before the start of the game, they were gonna treat this 3-on-3 basketball game like the NBA finals. I'm not even exaggerating. One of them literally brought their LeBron shoes to play in, and the other dude was wearing a headband. So the game starts, and they're going super rough on each other, basically wrestling more than actually playing basketball. And fast forward to the end of the game, the kid who used to date this girl was about to lose. So he was furious, and because of that, when the guy on the other team went for a layup, he shoved him. And the guy went flying and landed on his back. Both the kids are barking at each other like two dogs when there's a fence separating them. And eventually, the school bell rings, signaling that class is over and it's time to go to lunch. So the kid who lost is at the lowest of lows. His team just lost in front of his ex-girlfriend to her new boyfriend's team. It was the ultimate embarrassment. But hey, what's the one thing that can fix all this disappointment? Taco Tuesday. Well, no. Instead, it made everything worse because we all get to the cafeteria for lunch. Everything's going normal. And I'm talking with the kid whose team lost because we were friendly with each other and we just got out of the same class, but he is still furious. So fast forward to when it was our time to get tacos, and what happens? The school is out of tacos. So we had to get the backup meal. And what was the backup meal that day? I don't even have to say it. You guys already know what it was. That's right. It was the mystery cup. And the kid whose team lost is furious. As if his day wasn't going bad enough already, this was the event that tipped him over the edge. So instead of eating or slurping or drinking this weird cup of cement, he decided there was something better he could do with it. So after he gets his cup, instead of walking over to the area he usually sat in, he goes straight up to the table of his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. He doesn't say a single word. He just taps the new boyfriend on his shoulder, and this is what the new boyfriend sees. Yes. He threw this cup of wet cement straight at this guy, and it gets all over him. Right when this happened, the school goes silent for a second, and everyone's just going, ooh, waiting to see what happens next. And then the kid with wet mystery juice all over him, that probably is toxic, let's be real, but he gets up and throws his tacos and his milk right back at this guy. And that was all it took, because now the dam broke. The war had begun. Just like that, the slop on everyone's tray wasn't prison food anymore. No. It was ammunition. because the girlfriend then throws her whole tray at her ex-boyfriend. She didn't even pick up the food and throw it. She just yeeted the whole tray. So a bunch of other students from each friend group get involved now, just throwing foods at each other. It was like two rival gangs battling each other out. But instead of using weapons that could hurt you physically, they were using weapons that could hurt you emotionally. Well, that cup of cement probably could kill you, so, but it was 5 minutes of pure chaos. The floppy damp green beans are now being thrown like fastballs, sticking to people's foreheads, on their backpacks, on the wall. The hot sauce for the tacos is staining people's clothes. The quiet kid who wasn't a part of either friend group just starts running around with his spork in his hand, trying to attack people, and the staff workers are completely useless. They tried blowing their whistles, but you could barely even hear it when compared to the screams of hundreds of kids getting attacked by gabagool. One of the workers, a man named Mr. Henderson, tried to walk into the middle of the fight, and with his hands up, he's yelling, "Stop this right now, all of you!" But he was immediately attacked by a taco shell with some cheese in it that hit him like a Mike Tyson right hook. He quickly gave up on trying to stop the food fight right there. And I got the mystery cement for my lunch too, and obviously I wasn't gonna eat that, but I also didn't have any beef with someone at my school. I thought about just throwing it at the student who reminded our science teacher about giving us homework the day before, but I decided against it. I remember seeing one dude who was literally in the middle of the crossfire, like there is tacos flying directly over his head, and he's just sitting there, unfazed, continuing to eat his tacos as if nothing's going on around him. I respect how unbothered he was. This insanity only ended when the principal, who was a man so scary that he was like a myth, appeared in the doorway with what looked like every single teacher in the school standing behind him. Because at my school, if you saw the principal live in the flesh, you knew it was serious. We would usually only see the vice principal during assemblies or any other time you would expect to see your actual principal. So my principal low-key had a bunch of aura, I ain't gonna lie. But he opens the doors, blows his whistle that somehow sounded like an Aztec whistle instead of a normal school one, and then he goes, "Enough!" Everyone goes silent. Everyone stops throwing food. Well, except for the one kid who hadn't thrown his milk yet, so he just chucked it like a Hail Mary across the cafeteria. And then the principal ordered us to all start cleaning up this mess. He said if we didn't finish cleaning up by the time lunch was over, he would have no problem giving every single student detention. I don't know if that's even possible to do, but he would have found a way because like I said, this man's got unlimited aura. So everyone gets up to clean. We're using paper towels, those little napkins they give you with your meal that do absolutely nothing, and we took care of most of it. But when I went home and showered that night, I saw a piece of green bean flush down the drain, which meant it had been on my head the whole time without me knowing. But wait, you thought this video was just all negative about school lunches? No, because what if I told you there was actually one I enjoyed? And not just like the tacos where I could tolerate them, but still didn't look forward to it. No, this was a food that was actually delicious. And you may never have even heard of this food before. That's how rare it was at our school. This meal was like finding a gold scar. So what is this beautiful food I'm talking about? Mac sticks. If you don't know what Mac sticks are, they're basically breadsticks filled with cheese. But for some reason, unlike everything else they served at school, this meal felt like it was served with love and not the pure hatred that came with every other meal. Kids would go to war for these Mac sticks. But this has already been 30 seconds of me glazing a meal they served at school, which feels like 30 seconds too long. You open the door and immediately you're hit with a smell that makes your nose hairs curl. You already know what's about to happen, but you can't stop it. So you step into the bathroom, scan it to see which stall is safest to use, but newsflash, none of them are. So you go into the one that looks the least like it will give you an incurable disease and wish for the best. That was every single school bathroom trip. And because my schools growing up had literally no rules besides just don't bother the teachers while they're on their lunch break, I have a lot of stories about my experiences with this place. But before I get into these stories that are literally giving me PTSD just to think about, there are some universal things that every school bathroom had that I gotta talk about. First off, the walls were always covered in writing. It looked like graffiti, but instead of just putting some cool design like people do on the side of a freeway, it would have something written on it like who has more aura, and then it would have the name Diddy on one side and LeBron on the other, and you see a bunch of tallies under each name. There was one time where I went into the bathroom and someone wrote on the wall, "How are you doing?" But the next day when I went in, right under that message, it said, "Good. How are you?" Then the next day, it said under that message, "I'm good. Thanks for asking." And the next day, under that message, it said, "I'm gonna touch you." That was where the conversation ended. There was no rules for what could be written on that wall. Someone put a phone number on it one time that said, "Call me," and I thought it was funny. So I typed the number into my phone, but when it started ringing, I realized it was my number! Who wrote that on the wall? I never found out, but it just shows what type of things happen in there. And every single bathroom was disgusting. So of course, you always wanted to make sure you washed your hands after finishing. The only problem was the paper towel dispenser was either empty or jammed, or you had quite literally the worst air drying system ever. You'd press the button and the machine would shoot out less air than my farts do. The soap was always that thin, pink liquid that somehow made your hands feel even more dirty than before you washed them. The mirror always had a smudge that had clearly been there since the building was built. Sometimes it even had pee on it.
I really hope that part wasn't just my school.
But here's the crazy part. With all of that, the smell, the wet floor, the graffiti, this bathroom was somehow the most eventful place in the entire school. More things happened in this room than any other room in school. The bathroom was where everything went down every single day, and it had nothing to do with actually using the bathroom, which is exactly where this story starts. Now, unfortunately, as we all know, school toilet paper, if you could even call it actual toilet paper, was thinner than my bank account after spending all my money on pictures of LeBron in a maid dress. Like, if you held up a piece of that toilet paper, you could see your hand on the other side. It was translucent. Yeah, bet you didn't expect me to say a word that big, huh? I actually know a lot of big words because I'm very smart, like vasectomy, circumcision? I just Googled those last two, so I don't actually know what they mean. But anyways, school toilet paper was somehow both rough and weak at the same time. Like, it would scratch you when using it to wipe, but also dissolve on contact. It was engineered specifically to be as useless as possible. So one day, I'm in school, and I always had to go to the bathroom the same time every day. My body was on a consistent clock, and it always had to go during third period. But this day was worse because I had to go number 2. Now let's make something very clear. I did everything in my power to not go number 2 in the restroom. I was clenching my cheeks for an hour, but then I felt a fart coming that I realized was definitely not just a fart. And I knew if I didn't use the bathroom, fourth period would come and my leg would suddenly have a brown streak going down it. So I tapped my teacher on the shoulder and say,
"Hey, I need to go to the bathroom for a while. I promise I'm not trying to skip school, but if you don't let me go, it will smell like a baby's diaper inside this classroom."
So she lets me go, and I arrive at the bathroom. I pick the least horrible stall, then I wipe the toilet down about 40 times and do my business. I don't know if this is TMI, but I felt like I was fighting in World War II trying to get this log out. Anyways, eventually it's time to wipe. So I reach for the toilet paper roll, but there's a problem. There's maybe 1.5 rotations left on it. So I start pulling slowly, gently, knowing I have to use every single piece I have left perfectly. But what happens when I try pulling? It tears immediately. Of course it does. I look at what I have in my hand, which is about this much, and I do the calculation to see if I'm gonna be able to do this. The calculation is not in my favor. So I use the one piece of toilet paper I have left and hope that I get a ghost wipe and I can just leave the bathroom. But of course I didn't. Once the last piece was all used up, I still had a lot of work to do. Now let me ask you, what would you do in this situation? This isn't a rhetorical question either. Like, actually comment what you would do because I'm still not sure if I made the right decision. But what happened next is something I really hope no one watching this ever has to go through, because I made sure the coast was clear. Then I opened the door to my stall, crab walked to the next stall, took the roll from that one, and went back to my stall as quickly as possible. If someone had walked into the bathroom in this moment, I'm pretty sure I would have been either expelled for public indecency or screenshotted and had pictures taken of me that would still be on the internet today. Neither of those things happened though. I hope. So I took the roll from the other stall, and you might think this is where the pain and suffering of this story ends. But no, because remember how I said how thin the toilet paper was? Well, when I tried using this toilet paper to wipe, it ripped as I was wiping. And when I looked at my hand, let's just say my hand was a little more brown than it is right now. I don't think I need to elaborate anymore. I finished up after this nightmare, walked back to third period, and said nothing to no one. This is why when you look around at people in public, you never know what's going on inside people's lives. I doubt anyone looking at me in that moment would have guessed that 5 minutes ago, I was fighting the Dookie monster in the bathroom. But I'm not the type of person that will just have an experience like this and let it go. No, I don't want to see this happen to anyone else. So I'm making a petition to make the toilet paper in bathrooms thicker. Now, does getting signatures on a petition actually do anything? I have no idea, but I see other people online do it, so I'm gonna do it too. The crazy part is, every single bathroom was like this. It didn't matter what level of school you were in. They all had horrible toilet paper. I once went to Harvard, not because I actually went to school there. I was just visiting a friend. He didn't go to school there either. He was just as dumb as me. But he lived by there. But we were on their campus and we went to their bathroom and even they had horrible toilet paper. So every single grade of school has it. But it's not until about middle school where it becomes very obvious that the bathroom is not being used as just a bathroom. No one tells you that the school bathroom evolves as you get older. Like, yes, technically some people go in there and use it to pee, but that's almost incidental once you get to middle school. In your first couple years of school, the kids aren't as evil as when they get older. So the bathrooms are clean and usually pretty quiet. But once you get to middle school, everything changes. Schools take away recess and suddenly kids don't want to behave anymore. My very first day of middle school, I walk into the bathroom and I'm absolutely shocked. First thing I notice, the smell. There was a strong artificial scent of bubblegum, which was odd. I was thinking they must have sprayed Febreze in here, but I quickly found out that smell was coming from people vaping. How could a room smell like diarrhea and bubblegum at the same time? I don't know, but it did. And in the very back stall of the bathroom, it was cloudy. I saw about 4 people's shoes under that stall, so I went over to see what was going on, because I figured they were having a bonfire or something. But no, it was just all their vape clouds. Anyways, I do my business, leave, and move on with my day. But the next day, I go back into the bathroom, wondering what I'll see today, and there's a fight happening. All these things that never happened in the bathroom in elementary school were now happening here. Now, the bathroom had an unspoken agreement when it came to fights that I learned that day. If you need to settle something, you go to the bathroom. It was basically Fight Club. But the vaping and the fights, that you expected. What you could not anticipate was the completely random stuff. One time, I walked into the bathroom and there were 2 kids doing a speed eating contest with Lunchables. Now, I'm sure you're very confused, so let me elaborate. These kids had lined the Lunchables up on the counter, the same counter that probably had every germ under the sun, and one kid would say,
3, 2, 1, go!
Then they would build their Lunchable as fast as possible and eat it. 3 more people were just standing there watching. You may ask why they were doing this, and I was wondering that too. So I asked what was going on, and they just went,
To be honest, I don't really know.
Understandable. Have a great day.
There's 2 things that could have happened to those kids. Either A, they got really sick from eating those Lunchables and may never recover, or B, they built up an immunity so strong, almost giving them superpowers, and they'll probably never get sick in their life again. You may wonder, why did the bathroom ever become the place where everything happened? Well, the answer is, this was the only spot on campus that had no adult supervision. Every hallway, every classroom, every cafeteria, someone was watching, either cameras, teachers, or administrators. But the bathroom, it was a safe space, and we abused that. Especially on this one day where I had 3 minutes before my next class started. I walked into the bathroom just trying to mind my own business, but I stopped moving immediately after pushing that door open because there's a kid, one singular kid, standing in the direct center of the bathroom. He's not near a toilet, he's not at the sink, he's in the center, and he's giving a speech. He's got the hand gestures going, making eye contact with the wall, literally looking like he's giving a TED talk. When I walk in, he does not stop. He doesn't even flinch. I look around and think to myself,
Is there some sort of audience I'm not seeing?
I mean, kinda. There's one other kid at the sink who has clearly been there for a while. He's just standing there with his wet hands. Then there's another kid using one of the urinals with his pants down to his ankles. Wasn't expecting to see the moon at 9:30 a.m. But the speech kid makes eye contact with me, and I immediately look away because I need to get in and get out so I can get to class on time. I walk to my urinal and do my business, but he's still going. I'm starting to hear him say phrases like,
And that's exactly why nobody wants to acknowledge this, but
you could tell there is passion in his voice, but I still don't know what he's actually talking about. So I finish, wash my hands, and I look back one more time before I leave. Now, the kid from the sink is gone, and it's just me and the speech kid left alone in there. So he definitely wasn't talking to anyone. But right as I'm about to leave the bathroom, he breaks character for the first time and goes,
because this is the reason. Hey,
he taps on the back of my shoulder, and I just go, but I reluctantly turn around towards him, and he says,
how was that?
How was what? I don't even know what you just did.
Then he goes,
My speech for history. Did it sound good?
now I figured out what he was doing. So I looked him in the eyes and said,
Dude, you are going to ace that speech.
now I had no idea what he actually said in the speech, but he said it with so much confidence that I'm sure he did great. But that situation perfectly described the bathroom. Anything you needed to do, the bathroom was the spot for it. And the teachers knew this. Because contrary to popular belief, I'm pretty sure teachers themselves actually went to school once too. So they knew all the tips and tricks about the bathroom. They would be suspicious about what was happening in there. And that knowledge changed everything about how they handled the bathroom request. You'd raise your hand, say,
Can I go to the bathroom?
and the teacher would just look at you like you insulted her mother, as if asking to go pee is the most vile thing you could possibly do. They don't say anything. They just lock eyes directly with you, trying to see if you really need to use the bathroom or if you're going there to do something else. And the problem is, the more innocent you try to look, the more guilty you actually look. Finally, they usually say, yes, go ahead to the bathroom, but you can tell by their tone of voice that you better get back quickly because they're suspicious of you. Now, I understand why the teachers were paranoid about the bathroom, but I think they were a bit dramatic about it. Like, teachers should not be asking, why do you need to go to the bathroom? Genuinely, what do you think I'm gonna say? To find the cure for pneumonia? No, I'm going to pee! And even if I was going to mess around, I wouldn't tell you. But the most rage bait thing a teacher could say when you ask to go to the bathroom is,
I don't know. Can you?
listen, teach, I did not wake up at 6:30 a.m. to go to my least favorite place on earth, and then right when I have to pee or my bladder is gonna explode, you say, I don't know, can you go to the bathroom? W rage bait from the teacher, to be honest. I can't even lie. It would have my face turning red just thinking about it. But the teachers were able to outsmart all of us. They found a way to make sure none of us ever messed around. And that was by giving us bathroom passes. Because holding a baseball bat while you have to go pee is gonna fix everything, apparently. Teachers made the bathroom pass as inconvenient as possible on purpose. Giant wooden boards, laminated signs the size of a textbook. One teacher I had gave us hall passes that were literally plungers. Do you know how embarrassing it was to walk out of the the bathroom after using it with a plunger in your hand, it looked like I committed some evil acts in there. So to all the teachers watching this, because obviously everyone's teacher is a fan of Tyler Vitelli, please stop with the bathroom passes. I promise they're not working for their intended purposes. If anything, some kids are probably using them as weapons. But you know what makes the teachers not letting students use the bathroom so frustrating? They never had to use these bathrooms themselves. Because I remember the specific day I found out teachers have their own bathroom. A separate bathroom. Not the wet floor disaster zone that students used. Their own private bathroom that was actually clean. With real toilet paper, soap that had a normal consistency. And when I found this out, I could no longer go to the student bathroom every day just knowing there was a better world out there. So I knew I had to figure out a way to start using the teacher's bathroom. It was down a hallway that students weren't supposed to be in. There were no classes down that way, which meant if you were caught in that area, the teachers would be very suspicious. So I came up with a plan. I'd get the bathroom pass during class, check the illegal hallway to make sure the coast is clear, and go down it. I'd never tried doing it during lunch, too risky. But while in class, I thought I could beat it. So I walked slow, check left, checked right, and then I push open the door like it might have an alarm on it. And on the other side, it's a normal bathroom. Clean sink, soap dispensers, toilets with no dookie on them, paper towels that were actually paper towels, the kind that exist in the adult world and don't disintegrate when they make contact with you. Now this was a long time ago, so I may not be remembering this correctly, but I'm pretty sure I shed a tear when I walked in there. I then used the bathroom. It was a beautiful experience. But as I was mid-hand wash, I hear footsteps in the hallway right outside the door. Slow, purposeful, teacher-paced footsteps. So I freeze with my hands still wet over the sink, completely still, not making a noise. The footsteps stop right outside the door. I'm not breathing for a full 5 seconds, but then they keep walking. I stand there for another 30 seconds after I can't hear them anymore, just in case it's a trap, and then I dry my hands, compose myself, and open the door. But after opening that door, I see the teacher at the end of the hallway, and she can see me. So I speed walk around the corner to disappear from her as fast as possible. And luckily, I don't think she had the best eyes, because I never got caught. Using the teacher's bathroom was risky, but man, was it worth it. Now, everyone who's watching this right now, I want you to stand up and give a round of applause. Come on, everyone watching. Why are you still sitting down right now? Get up! Good boy. Now, what are we giving this round of applause for? The janitors. Because with all these terrifying bathroom experiences I've been telling you, there was a person whose entire job was to walk in after us and deal with what we left behind. Think about what a school janitor actually encounters. They open that door knowing, not guessing, but knowing that whatever is on the other side is going to be bad. Even if you're a janitor, your best possible day is still a nightmare. Let's just say somehow no pee is on the floor, no one lit a toilet on fire. You still have to get down and dirty and clean the toilets. The list goes Navy SEALs, school janitors, Arsenal fans, then surgeons. What am I talking about? People with the strongest mentalities. Because you gotta be one resilient person to wake up every morning knowing that the next 8 hours of your life is gonna be straight up just cleaning doo-doo and still accept it anyway. Now, if you've seen my video about school bus drivers, you would know I said whatever they're getting paid, it wasn't enough. But you can go ahead and multiply that by 1,000 with school janitors. There is no dollar amount that is enough to do that job. And if any janitors are watching this, comment down below, because I want everyone in the comment section to show love to you. And also, I'm sorry for missing the toilet so many times when peeing. I promise I try to be accurate, but sometimes I would have multiple streams and I couldn't control where it went, and yeah, you get it. Now, janitors are supposed to be people who fix the bathroom, but there was one time where fixing the bathroom went very, very wrong. Because my school had 2 floors, and in one of the classes I had, there was a bathroom on the 2nd floor directly above it. I knew of this, but I never really thought about it until one very tragic afternoon where I'm sitting in class and I feel something hit my hand. It's small and wet. I look down and it's a little drop of water on my finger. So I look up at the ceiling and see nothing. And I just go back to what I was doing. But then there's another drop. I watch it fall from the ceiling. And now a small dark spot has appeared on the tile directly above me. I look around and a few other people have started to notice. The drops are coming slowly. One drop, wait a few seconds, then another one. And something in my brain, probably the temporal lobe or whatever, said to me,
"You know what would be funny? Open your mouth. Stick your tongue out. Catch the next drop of water in your mouth. People would think it's so funny."
So I did that. I tilted my head back, opened my mouth, stuck my tongue out, and caught a drop of water. Some people laughed. My teacher made a face, and I did it again. Now, it had been raining that day, so we figured there was just a leak somewhere in the building, and it was rainwater. But then it started dripping faster, to the point where the teacher was like,
Tyler, let's move your desk so you're not getting hit by these drops of water anymore.
My teacher grabs a trash can, shoves it under the leak, relocates me, and now we're all just watching a trash can fill up with sealing liquid. But 5 minutes later, the door opens, and it's a guy in a plumber's outfit. He looks at the trash can, he looks at the ceiling, he looks at my teacher, and then he says,
"Has there been a leak in here?"
My teacher just points points towards the trash can, which is now visibly filling up, and the plumber goes,
Oh yeah, sorry. I loosened one of the valves in the toilet upstairs and it must have been leaking.
Everyone looks at me because we're all registering what this means at the same time. The drops I had been catching on my tongue weren't from the rain. No, as much as I wish it was, it wasn't. The drops of water were coming from the upstairs toilet. I was drinking doo-doo water. I immediately raised my hand to ask the teacher if I could go to the bathroom to, I don't know, throw up, and she let me go. I went home that day terrified for my life because I knew there was a strong possibility that me and the kids eating Lunchables off the counter were probably gonna end up in the ER together. Now, I didn't just say that story to trash on plumbers. No, they can fix a lot. But there is a small period of time between when you have a problem in the bathroom and the plumber shows up to fix it where something very bad can happen. I found that out in the worst possible way. So there was a day where I had to go number 2. And if you haven't noticed by now, almost every school bathroom nightmare happens because you decide to take a dump in it. So never do that. But I've been holding this in all morning. The bathroom had been looking rough and I kept thinking,
I'll wait. I can make it to lunch.
but before lunch came, I couldn't hold it any longer. I had to go. I walked in and the floor was wet, but a specific kind of wet this time. Not the usual mystery moisture. There was a thin, flat, even layer of actual water covering the whole floor. Like if I touched the ground, the water was literally up to here. But my body was done waiting. I had to release whatever was inside me. So I tiptoed to the stall, trying not to get my shoes wet, and I handled the situation. Took about 10 minutes, did my thing, and then I stood up. I looked at the toilet and tried to be a kind person, which is what got me hurt. Because what did I do? I flushed. The toilet made a sound like the building itself was saying,
Oh, no. You're not flushing today.
so instead of the water going down, it started coming out. Not from the bowl, but from the base of the toilet connected to the ground. Slowly at first, then faster. And I started to realize now why there may have already been a layer of water on the floor. I personally knew I was not responsible for breaking this toilet. I just happened to use it at the worst time. But if I told someone what happened, would they believe me? Or would they think I was responsible for turning the bathroom into a lagoon? Because the water did not stop coming out. So it got to the point where it was leaking outside the bathroom into the carpet in the halls. So now people were noticing. And I'm sorry, I had to put me first in this situation. So I left the bathroom before anyone could put the blame on me. The water was still spilling out, but I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to look guilty. I'm freaking out just thinking one thing.
Please do not find out I did this.
That bathroom was caution taped for a full week. For 7 days, I walked past it, and I don't know what it looked like inside there at the time, but based on the fact that it was closed for 7 days, I think it's fair to say it must have gotten significantly worse in the 3 hours between when I left and when someone discovered the situation. I never got caught though. Now this was 100% an accident. I did not mean to destroy the bathroom, but there was a time where it became a trend to absolutely mutilate the bathroom, and this trend was called devious licks. Devious licks was a period of time where kids across the country decided that the correct use of the school bathroom was to remove things from it, or destroy things, or steal things, and then post it online. Soap dispensers, gone. Mirrors, pulled off walls. Someone even dismantled an entire sink. I don't know who started it, but they caused a revolution. This trend was happening at my school, and the administration responded by essentially treating the bathroom like a crime scene at all times. Teachers were walking kids down in pairs like it was a kindergarten field trip. Bathroom doors were being locked periodically. There were even rumors that they were going to put cameras in the bathroom. Not like inside, I hope, but pointed at the entrance to it. I didn't participate in this trend because I was always too scared to get caught, but I definitely experienced the effects of it. Because one day, I walked in and the toilet was gone. Not broken, not clogged, not sealed off, gone. The entire toilet bowl. There was a hole in the ground. I stood there and just looked at it for a moment thinking two things. One, how in the world did someone get this out of the ground? Unless the Hulk was going to my school, whoever did this couldn't have done it with their bare hands. So this meant they needed tools. But I'm not talking a wrench or a shovel. I mean heavy machinery. And the second thing that went through my mind was, where was the toilet right now? Was it in someone's house? In the back of a car on the way to becoming someone's weird trophy? And how did they possibly get it out of the bathroom without getting caught? I never got my answer to any of these questions. It's like trying to figure out how the pyramids were built. The only answer that made sense is aliens, but it's hard to convince yourself that's true. School bathrooms survived a lot, as you can see, but at the end of the day, we all loved them. Actually, no we didn't. I despised the school bathroom. Have you ever realized that every single year of school was horrible, but each grade was horrible in its own special way? Like first grade, you had kids randomly throwing up everywhere. Ninth grade, you had kids chasing you around the locker room with homemade flamethrowers. Or maybe that was just me. So today, I'm gonna slander every grade from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And if you're not all the way through school yet, this can be a warning of what's coming in your future. Kindergarten is the only year of school where everybody is just useless and no one expects anything better from you. And honestly, that was kind of peak. You're 5 years old, built like a juice box, and every feeling you have is the biggest feeling any human has ever had. If your mom drops you off and leaves, your life is over. If another kid gets gets the blue crayon first, your life is over. But kindergarten was still beautiful because life was so simple. You color, you eat snacks, you throw up whenever you feel like it, wherever you want. And I haven't even mentioned how easy it was to make friends back then. That's the craziest part of kindergarten. You sit next to some random kid during story time, you both laugh when the teacher does a funny voice, and just like that, the person next to you is your lifelong brother. I still have a friend now that I met in kindergarten, and our friendship started that exact way. And after you make that friend, you guys are locked in. Because this is basically your first friend ever. So you're sharing goldfish crackers with each other, learning how to spell together, and you're both silently agreeing to stay very far away from the one kid who just threw up all over the table at 10:14 in the morning. And everybody had a kid who did that too. Like there was always one kid in kindergarten who just collapses for no reason. Throws up, cries, takes his shoes off and never puts them back on. And nobody knows what his deal is, but everybody understands one thing. Do not sit near him. That's kindergarten. A bunch of little civilians with glue on their hands, loving life, missing their parents, and becoming best friends faster than grown adults choose a Netflix show. And that is why first grade feels so disrespectful. First grade is when school takes the clown nose off. Because you come back after kindergarten thinking you're basically a decorated veteran now. In your head, you know the system. You know what recess is. You know where the bathroom is. But then you get something very horrible. Homework. Now you've got worksheets. You've got to know how to spell words. You've got to know how to add numbers together. Kindergarten was just coloring and vibes. First grade is the first time you realize the adults in the building are actually expecting you to do something. So now you're trying to live up to these new school expectations while still being surrounded by people who throw up on command. Because when you're in first grade, now you're at recess with the older kids. It's not just other kids in your grade. Every recess had that one kid who was just fully feral. He bites, he screams for fun, he runs at full speed with no destination, he'll chase people around the playground like he was raised in the woods and briefly introduced to civilization. When I say the word first grade, my heart literally starts beating faster because it just reminds me of that kid chasing me. Because all I can think of when I think about first grade is keeping enough distance between me and that weird kid so I can make it to lunch without becoming his lunch. That's first grade. Then summer comes around again and you tell yourself one of the biggest lies.
It can't get worse from here, right?
Wrong. Because second grade is where the magic is officially worn off and everybody starts becoming an actual person. That's what I remember most about second grade. Not the people, not the homework. What I remember is that this is the year everybody started to get an actual personality, which means they started to get their own roles. You had the teacher's pet who reminds the teacher about homework like he's wearing a wire. You had the class clown who is either the most funny kid in the class or just the least funny kid ever. I was kind of a mix of both, to be honest. That's second grade. But because you start to develop a personality in second grade, that means it can also start to feel evil. Because one day, everything is fine. You're playing at recess, having a good time. Life is good. Then the next day, you walk up to the same group of people you were playing with and somebody just hits you with the,
Nah, you can't play with us today.
there was no reason for it. They just simply shunned you from the group. Now you're just standing there on the blacktop at recess, forced to hang out with the weird kid who would bite people. But for third grade, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember that year super clearly. And I think that's because third grade was one of those weird in-between years, and I don't have any big memorable moments from it, except for one. Because third grade is about the time where you start to develop a crush. And that may sound amazing, but it usually ends up horrible. Because the second you like somebody for the first time, you stop acting like a normal human being. I'll never forget my first crush. To this day, I thought I was gonna marry that girl in third grade, and I wanted to impress her so bad. So for some reason, I decided the best way to impress her was to show off on the monkey bars. Now you may think if I wanted to show off on the monkey bars, that must mean I was really good at the monkey bars, right? No, I was horrible at them, but I was determined. So one day, I'm up there on the monkey bars acting like this is my moment. My crush is watching, and in my head, I'm about to do some smooth little move, hop off the monkey bars, do a backflip, and land. Everyone will see that I'm the coolest person at recess, and my crush will be obsessed with me. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Not even close. What actually happened is I tried to do a flip, but my hand slipped, I folded up weird, and I got the wind knocked out of me when I hit the ground, and I made these weird, disgusting little accordion noises while everybody looked at me. And that was painful. But not as painful as the fact that my crush saw it happen. It still makes me cringe to this day. Because I was just laying there on the wood chips, trying to act like I was fine, but my crush literally just watched me go from cool athletic guy to Victorian child with asthma in about 1 second. There was no bouncing back from that. But the true peak of third grade was the book fair. The book fair was not just a school event, it was magic. You walk in and suddenly everything looks unbelievable. Pencils, erasers, books, weird little gadgets nobody needed, but every kid wanted. You would see about 50 things in there that you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna get that. But then you remember, you only have like $7 to your name. So now you're standing there trying to decide between buying a Captain Underpants book or buying one of those pencils that smells like Coca-Cola. But luckily, this is also the time where you find out that you can steal. Just kidding. That's a joke. It's a joke. That was third grade for me. Then summer rolls around, and by fourth grade, school starts talking to you like you should already have your life together. Fourth grade is when school stops feeling like a place you go to and starts feeling like something that follows you home. This is where the amount of schoolwork you have just starts getting disrespectful. Like we've learned how to spell, we learned how to do subtraction and addition. So now the homework's starting to get longer, the reading's getting heavier, the projects are getting bigger, and the teachers start talking to you like you're old enough to be held accountable for anything. Matter of fact, we were all still peeing our pants in fourth grade, right? Before fourth grade, if you forgot something, teachers would give you some grace and look at you like a child. Once you get to 4th grade though, they start looking at you like a very disappointing employee.
Why is your rating logged outside?
I don't know. Maybe because I'm 9 and I spent the summer doing cannonballs into my friend's pool, not reading books.
4th grade was the first time I came home from school and actually felt stressed. That was the first time I actually had to do schoolwork into the nighttime. Nighttime was supposed to be meant for watching Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, not doing math. I remember in 4th grade, I had a project that we were given 8 weeks to do, and I procrastinated it until the very last night. I told my mom about it the day before it was due, and my whole family basically got drafted into working on it with me. My mom was cutting things out, I was gluing things together, my dad's walking around pretending he understands the assignment we're doing, but we both know he doesn't. In reality, most of the work I had to do in elementary school was just done by my mom. That's 4th grade. Thinking back to it, 4th grade might actually be my least favorite year of school. And that really sucks because my favorite number is 4. And weirdly enough, my least favorite number is 5. But 5th grade was way better. Because when 5th grade rolls around, for the first time in your life, you're the big dog on campus. And giving that amount of power to a child is a horrible thing. Now you're the oldest people at the school. The kindergartners look microscopic. The younger grades are just little random civilians moving around beneath you. You start walking through school like you own the place. Like the principal should run all major decisions past you first. The best part is all the other grades look up to you. Because you're the oldest people in school, they all think you're super cool. The only problem with 5th grade is that everybody keeps reminding you that middle school is coming. And that ruins everything. Because teachers talk about middle school like you're being transferred to another country. Your older siblings make it sound like a lawless wasteland. And if you read Diary of a Wimpy Kid around that age, middle school looked like the worst thing that could ever happen to a human being. So 5th grade was weird. Half the year, you're loving life because you're the oldest person in the elementary school. But the other half of the year, you're quietly realizing that your days are numbered. But 5th grade was also the year I had my very first sleepover with kids from school. Parents drop you off, you bring way too much junk food, you and your friends act like you're basically grown now, and that feeling lasts for about 40 minutes. Because then, the whole house just turns into complete chaos. Somebody's yelling, somebody's fake wrestling in a room that is way too small for that, somebody is eating more sugar than those rats in scientific studies, then you've always got the kid who randomly gets homesick around 11:43 p.m. and just goes home without telling anybody. That's 5th grade. You're at the absolute top of elementary school. But once again, summer comes and all that big dog energy you had slowly turns into one disgusting thought. Next year, you have to go back to being at the bottom of the totem pole. And that is called 7th grade. Middle school is insane. And I remember thinking on my very first day of 6th grade, how bad can this really be? Let me just tell you, bad. Because in elementary school, life made sense. You had one teacher, one classroom, then you get to middle school and all of a sudden you have a schedule, no recess, and kids randomly vaping in the bathroom. It still takes me about 14 minutes to know how to use a lock. But it wasn't any part of the actual class in middle school that was the craziest. The true horror of middle school was walking into the bathroom for the first time. It's always the 7th graders messing around in there. 7th grade is when middle school stops attacking you from the outside and starts attacking you from within. Your voice cracks at the worst possible time. Acne shows up like your face owes it money. You start to smell for some reason, and you're just trying to figure out how to balance all this without your crush thinking you're a psychopath. Because a 7th grade boy around a 7th grade girl does not know how to act. Because 7th grade is where drama becomes a full-time job. Now one person is crying in the bathroom over a relationship that lasted 4 days and mostly consisted of eye contact and walking near each other after class. I remember having my first real little middle school girlfriend in 7th grade. Relationships in 7th grade are basically just acting like a divorced couple with joint custody of an apartment. Like 80% of it was just awkward hallway interactions, 15% was overthinking texts, and 5% was standing next to each other trying to figure out if we were supposed to hug or just like nod to each other like coworkers. And the whole time I was acting like this was some deeply complicated love story, all in my super cool outfits. Neon green basketball shorts that went down to my ankles. The actual schoolwork gets harder too. That's what makes 7th grade so cruel. It's not enough that your skin is betraying you and your social life feels like a badly managed TV drama, because now algebra shows up too. Whoever created algebra, why? Like I already had enough unknowns in my life. Now you want me to find X too? Like I don't care about figuring out the value of X right now. I just got left on red by a girl who has braces shaped like a picket fence and I am going through it. That was what 7th grade was. Also, one thing I have to mention about 7th grade, the worst haircuts I've ever seen. I'm just gonna say it, if you're in 7th grade right now watching this video, your haircut is probably chopped. That's not supposed to be a roast, it's just the reality. But that's what 7th grade is about. Bad haircuts, embarrassing crush stories, and getting publicly humiliated. Now I've told you guys my least favorite year was probably 4th grade, but if we're asking what my favorite year was, it's gotta be 8th grade. 8th grade is when I started to touch grass for the first time in my life. Matter of fact, it was the only time I touched grass in my life, because I don't do it now. But this is the year when your brain stops living in middle school. That's the whole year. You're physically still in middle school, you're still in the same hallways, still eating the same gross lunch, but mentally, you're already in high school. Because all anybody talks about in 8th grade is high school. High school this, high school that.
Bro, in high school it's gonna be so different. Just wait till you get to high school and try doing that. Nobody cares in high school. Everybody cares in high school. In high school, everybody vapes. The students are huge in high school. You can leave for lunch in high school.
But the crazy part is, every single person describes it way differently. So now, your brain is just a blender full of rumors. One person will make it sound like a movie, another person makes it sound like a prison, which I mean, there are movies about prison, so I guess both those can be true. The funniest part is when a teacher says,
"That won't slide in high school."
I remember me and my friends talking about high school like it was the promised land.
Bro, when we get to high school, everything changes.
We thought we were about to get taller, cooler, more funny, better looking, more athletic, more confident. For me personally, when I went to high school, I switched schools, so I went to one where I didn't know anybody. So in my mind, this was an opportunity to completely reinvent myself. So I was excited for it. But this was the reason 8th grade was so great. You just didn't take the actual school you were in seriously. You're finally the oldest person in the school, and you can just do whatever you want. I thought high school was going to be so peak, which is funny because my real high school life was absolutely not what I was imagining. I thought high school was going to fix me. Suddenly, people would think I was funny. People would actually like my haircut now. I would be more confident, but none of that happened because summer rolls around once again, but this one feels so different from all the other ones before it. For the first time in your life, August doesn't feel like school is starting again. It feels like you're being sent to somewhere completely different, somewhere bigger, somewhere scarier, somewhere everyone has spent the last year describing to you in the most dramatic way possible. It's like finally getting called up to the big leagues. 9th grade, freshman year of high school. I'm gonna be honest, this year terrified me. I walked into high school feeling like someone had dropped a child into a building full of grown adults. That may sound crazy, but if you actually think about it, that's true in high school. You are literally 14 growing to school with some grown adults. You're still a kid, your voice is cracking, but now you're going to school with people that can vote. Wait, is the voting age 18 or 21? I'm gonna be honest, I forgot. But that part is insane to me. Your backpack probably still has a Buzz Lightyear lunch pail in it, and some seniors walking by looking like they already have a full-time job, they got 2 kids at home to take care of, and they own a house. And it was even worse for me because, like I said, I went to a new school, so I wasn't just scared of the older kids, I was scared of everyone because I didn't know anybody. That was a horrible feeling. Walking into a giant building full of strangers while trying to act like you belong there should count as psychological warfare. And I had never even been to the campus before, so I had no idea how to get to the buildings. Because when lunch comes and you don't know anybody, lunch is not a break. It's more like a public hostage situation. Everybody else already seems to know where they're sitting, they're moving with a purpose, and they look like they belong. And I'm just standing there with a tray in my hand looking like I got separated from my family at the airport. Because the second day of lunch during my freshman year, I had no clue where I was going to sit or who I was going to talk to. But luckily, this 11th grader kind of took me under his wing. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say that this changed my whole school experience in 9th grade. Because since an 11th grader took me under their wing, now all of a sudden I was around the older kids. I've got somewhere to sit now. I'm hearing conversations I definitely have no business hearing. When you're a freshman, one older kid being nice to you feels like somebody just granted you immunity. Like nobody can hurt you anymore. If they do, the older kids will take care of it. Did I instantly become cool? No. But freshman year was so scary that this one little lifeline felt huge. Another reason 9th grade was so scary was, of course, the classes. Because high school is where I really started looking around and thinking, when am I ever going to use any of this information we're learning in real life? If I need to do math, my phone has a calculator. If I have a question about history, I can Google it on my phone. And when am I ever going to dissect a rat in real life? Like, why are we acting like my future should depend on whether I know the quadratic formula or not? This made so little sense to me that in 9th grade, I would just pull fake sick days. I would act like I had a stomach ache, stay home, and for about 11 minutes, it felt amazing. But then you're halfway through the day, sitting in the couch in your pajamas, and you're just thinking to yourself, I'm gonna have to do more work tomorrow now. Like you just moved the fear you had to tomorrow. That was freshman year. By far the scariest year of school I ever had. Then 10th grade comes along. You get comfortable. 10th grade is a trap because in 9th grade, you're so scared that you're basically moving through the building like a deer in traffic. Sophomore year is when high school finally tricks you into thinking,
You know what? I know how this works now.
and that's dangerous. Why am I saying that? Because I basically took all of 10th grade off. Like, I just didn't focus during any of my classes. I got like really bad grades that year. It was basically a vacation year. But I'm just telling you guys this so you don't make the same mistake. Because that was 10th grade for me. It wasn't scary like 9th grade. It wasn't crushing like 11th grade would be. But if we're talking about 10th graders in general and not just me, 10th grade is usually the year where everyone changes drastically. One random guy suddenly gets super into the gym. He's talking about how he's trying to decide whether he should either bulk, cut, or maintain. Like, brother, you're 15. You don't have a driver's license. You don't need to do any of those things. So yeah, don't do the same thing I did in 10th grade. And especially don't try it the next year in 11th grade. Because 11th grade is the World Cup final. It's the Super Bowl. It's the year where everything is to play for. You have to be absolutely locked in for this year. If it goes good, your future will be great. The reason 11th grade is that serious is because this is when you take all the tests the colleges will see. So they'll be looking at your grades from this year. You need to do good. You don't have another choice. But to be honest, if you haven't gotten to this grade yet, don't be too scared because people make it sound way more dramatic than it actually is. I mean, sure, it's way harder than any other grade, and if you don't do good, your life is practically over. But besides that, it's like any other school year. But like, for example, I didn't do the best in my 11th grade year, and look at me now, still living with my parents, and I have no girlfriend. Maybe don't look at me, actually. Let's just move on. Now we're on to the holy grail, 12th grade. 12th grade is the year. All you hear about 12th grade is that it's a party. You're a senior now. No work, no anything, just vibes. You already know what you're gonna do after high school, whether that be college or McDonald's. One guy's always doing construction. One person's gonna play video games 14 hours a day. But 12th grade is the most awesome time. Well, at least that's what I've heard about 12th grade. I wouldn't know because for me, 12th grade happened during COVID, so I had to do it online. Do you know how unfair that is? The one good year of school that people talk about, I didn't get to do. My senior year was spent in Zoom, turning cameras off so the teacher couldn't see that I was in bed, having to raise my hand to ask if I could go to the bathroom in my own house. I'm still not over it, man. It's not fair. It's not fair. You know what? I'm going back to 12th grade. I don't care. No, actually, that's weird. Pause. Wait. Anyways, I'm not mad. But after high school, you have two options. Do you take the blue pill and go to college? Or do you take the red pill and get a job? If I told you there was a place where grown adults spend their whole day obsessing over teenagers' shoulders, knees, and feet, you'd probably think I was describing some weird cult or Diddy's house. But nope, I'm talking about school. Because apparently, even with all the problems that exist at school, bathrooms that look like they haven't been cleaned since the Cold War, kids smoking Smarties, the thing schools have decided to focus on is making sure that no one can see your shoulders. School dress codes are genuinely insane, and today, I'm breaking down the most ridiculous ones, and how funny the difference between dress codes for girls is versus boys. Let's start out with what might be the freakiest dress code of all time, the war on shoulders. I genuinely need to know who looked at a human shoulder one day and thought to themselves, yeah, if we let a girl walk into school showing these off, no boys are gonna be able to focus. Because schools will literally pull students out of class mid-lesson, all because they're wearing a tank top. And the excuse is always the same. It's distracting to the other students. Distracting who? Who is sitting in algebra getting distracted by shoulders? Has anyone in the history of school ever been like, you know, I was trying to do the quadratic formula, but then I saw Sarah's shoulders and now I can't focus? No. That has never happened. Not once in human history, except to my homie Greg, because he has a weird shoulder fetish. But leave him out of this. Here's where it gets even more ridiculous though. Some schools have dress code violation shirts that they make you wear if you break the rules. And the funny thing about it is, I remember being in middle school one time, and it was like 95 degrees outside. The AC barely worked inside our schools. And by barely worked, I mean, we didn't have AC. So the classrooms felt like saunas. Everyone is sweating. And on one of these brutally hot days, a girl in my class wore a tank top. Makes sense, right? The classrooms are super hot. She's not trying to have a heat stroke while learning about the Revolutionary War. Seems like a reasonable decision for a human being that's trying to survive. But nope. She gets told by her teacher that her shirt violates our school dress code, and she needs to go to the office to get a new shirt that's appropriate. So she embarrassingly does the walk of shame out of class and goes to the office. And a couple minutes later, she comes back with this giant, oversized t-shirt that says dress code violation on it. But here's the best part. The shirt they gave her was so big and baggy that it kept falling off her shoulder. So she got dress coded for showing her shoulders, and the punishment was putting on a shirt that showed even more of her shoulders. The shirt they give you is literally meant to shame you. They're out here making kids wear the educational equivalent of a dunce cap, all because they're showing their shoulders. And the part that sucks about this is everyone knows that school isn't about learning or anything like that. No, the main purpose of school is to show off your best outfits. So when you gotta go from being dripped out in your Prada t-shirt to wearing an XXXXL gym shirt, that's devastating. So if you don't want to get dress coded for showing your shoulders, well, wear something to just cover it up, right? Well, no, because here comes the second most ridiculous dress code rule of all time, which is the hoodie. For some reason, schools are absolutely terrified of hoodies, like genuinely scared. Schools act like you putting your hood up is the equivalent of pulling out the ray gun from Call of Duty. I remember one time, a kid in my class literally got detention for just putting his hood up. The same punishment you'd get for skipping class or cheating on a test. And why is this dress code a rule in the first place? Security reasons, because they need to see your face, right? But what does that even mean? Do you think someone is gonna try impersonating another person by putting a hoodie on? I promise you that if a school intruder sneaks onto my campus, putting a hoodie on over their head is not gonna be a good enough disguise. Unless all the people working at the school just have the IQ of Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Who are you? A platypus? Parry the platypus!
And they can't recognize someone unless they're wearing their signature outfit. Banning hoodies in school was genuinely my least favorite dress code though, because when I was growing up, my mom would cut my hair. And mom, if you're watching this, I love you. But there would be some days where she'd give me a haircut and my hairline was the same angle as an airplane taking off. I'd have to tilt my head like this just for it to be straight. So I came to school so many times with my hair looking absolutely cooked. I couldn't walk into school showing it off. So what was the only solution? Put a hoodie on. But the teachers would always get mad when I did this and tell me to take it off. So from that point on, whenever I got a bad haircut, I would just fake a sickness and not go to school. But here's the funny part. It got so bad at my school that they literally banned hoodies, yet they sold hoodies inside the gymnasium with the school logo on them. So they were literally selling hoodies and telling you that you can't wear them at school. You could only wear long sleeves that didn't have a hood on them. We talked about how my school had no AC, but it also had no heating. And they would enforce this rule even when it was freezing inside. It's 40 degrees in class, everyone's shivering, and yet teachers are still in class pulling hoods off everyone like they're playing Duck Duck Goose, trying to reveal who has the worst haircut. Now this next dress code is one that I actually don't mind because I think they're incredibly ugly, but still, it makes no sense for them to be banned. What am I talking about? Ripped jeans. Now don't get me wrong, I think ripped jeans, along with jorts, might be the worst clothing invention ever created. And while I do think they should be banned from anyone in society at all being able to wear them, I don't understand why schools ban them. Because at least at my school, they had these hyper-specific rules about ripped jeans. It was like, the holes in your jeans can't be longer than 2 inches in diameter. or it couldn't be ripped above the knee, which, if I'm being honest, I don't even know how you measure diameter, so I wasn't gonna listen to this. But who even decided this? Is there a ripped jean council out there that's making these decisions? All right, team, we've done the research. 1 inch in diameter of ripped jeans, perfect. 1.5 inch in diameter of ripped jeans, okay. 2 inches, you're pushing it. 2.5 inches, send them to Alcatraz. And the way they'd enforce this rule was even more ridiculous. Teachers at my school would literally crouch down in the hallway and measure your jeans. They look like detectives investigating a murder scene. They get on their hands and knees, pull out a ruler, and measure the size of the hole in your jeans. Like, bro, you're a 45-year-old man measuring a teenager's pants in the middle of the hallway. Does this not seem a little weird to you? If you did this in any other setting, you'd be getting a restraining order. Maybe if the teachers focused more on teaching me in class and not examining everyone's jeans, I would have turned out to be a doctor and not someone who makes 6'7" and oil up jokes on the internet. Okay, no, I still definitely would have done that, but maybe someone else would have been a doctor. Well, guess what, Tyler? I have the solution. If school dress codes are so bad, why don't we just make everyone wear the same thing? Why don't we just have school uniforms? That's a great idea in theory, but somehow school uniforms are even worse. Because uniforms are supposed to be the great equalizer, right? Everyone's wearing the same thing, so you couldn't possibly have something on that violates the dress code. It's fair, except that's not true. Because even with school uniforms, kids will still find a way to customize it. They'll wear expensive shoes, designer belts, crazy backpacks, and if you have school uniforms, you're probably going to a private school, which means your parents are probably loaded, so I know you guys are dripped out. Making people wear school uniforms is like putting a band-aid over a broken leg and calling it fixed. I had a friend who went to private school where they had to wear school uniforms, and he would literally sag his pants. How did he sag in dress pants? The world may never know, but he did it. Point is, no matter what you do, you can't stop people from getting their drip on. The hilarious part about all these dress codes is how teachers will try to enforce them. Like, I don't know if this was just my school or if everyone had it, but we had something called the fingertip rule. For those who don't know, the fingertip rule is when you have to stand up straight, put your arms at your side, and your shorts or your skirt had to be longer than how far your fingertips go. Sounds reasonable, right? Wrong, because I know a lot of you probably think that I'm just a floating head who doesn't actually have a body, but to your surprise, I actually do have limbs. And for some reason, I have really long arms and not that long of a torso. I'm built like Peter Griffin in that one Family Guy episode where he for some reason becomes a woman. So if I put my hands down to my side, they almost go all the way to my knees, which means for me, I literally couldn't wear anything that was above my knees. And this was a problem because I like wearing shorter shorts. Now I'm not talking Drewski length short shorts, but a couple inches above the knee. But unfortunately, my Slenderman arms made it so that I could only wear long shorts to school every day. It was tragic. Who knows how many missed relationships I had in high school just because the girls didn't like my outfits. That's definitely not the reason I didn't have a girlfriend in high school. But anyway, point is, this rule makes no sense at all. Like, I knew one kid who was born without a left arm. So does that mean he could have pulled up to school every day without wearing any shorts on his left leg and not been dress coded? The funny thing is that I'm pretty sure this rule was made specifically for girls, but instead they had to enforce it on me because I like showing off those pasty legs. And speaking of dress codes that were made specifically for girls, we need to talk about the most obvious one that no one mentions. Dress codes for boys versus dress codes for girls. Because let me paint you a picture of what the dress code enforcement actually looks like inside schools. I remember one time in school, it was disgustingly hot. And like I said, our AC was trash. And this girl in my class wore a shirt that looked just like this. Teacher saw that, shook her head right away and went, absolutely not. You know the rule. Go to the office and get a shirt that doesn't violate the dress code. And I'm thinking, yeah, this rule is stupid, but come on, you know the rules by now. You probably shouldn't have worn that shirt knowing that. Until I turn my head 90 degrees and see a guy from the football team. What is he wearing? A tank top with a hole so big that you could see his full stomach through. Rib cage and everything. Looks like it hasn't been washed in 6 weeks. Has a mystery stain on it, which I don't want to know what that was. His tank top revealed more than a girl's Halloween costume. Yet the teacher didn't say anything. Matter of fact, the teacher literally went up to him and started asking him questions about the football game that week. I saw him wear that shirt about once a week to school without ever having a problem. Yet the girl had to go to the office and spend the rest of the day with pit stains from wearing a shirt that was made for Shaquille O'Neal. It's like schools have two completely different rule books. One for girls that's 38 pages long with subsections and a bunch of bullet points and footnotes and diagrams. And then there's the one for boys, and this one just says, hey, you do you, twin. Here's a list of things girls get dress coded for. Showing your shoulders. Shorts are too short. Wearing leggings. Shirts too tight. Shirts too loose. Ripped jeans with a hole the size of a quarter. Wearing the color neon yellow. I'll explain that one later. And here's a list of things boys get dress coded for. Showing up naked. That's it. That's the end of the list. And I know what you guys are thinking. Tyler, you're just catering towards the girls because you want them to like you. And you know what I say to that? How dare you accuse me of that? Because I, a 6'5" feminist who loves Taylor Swift, matcha, and whatever else girls like, Pilates, but I would never cater towards the girls. Now, I've made a list of some ridiculous dress codes that you guys told me exist at your school. So let's rapid fire through the most random ones. No pajama pants, because apparently it's a crime to be comfortable while you're failing algebra. No bandanas. When I asked this person why bandanas weren't allowed at their school, they They said it's because the school thinks it's gang related. What kind of school are you going to that has gang members in it? Degrassi High School? I've never actually watched that show, but I'm guessing it's a dangerous school since Drake got shot in it. Just so everybody knows, guys, if you wear a bandana, you are in a gang. It's not your choice. That's just how it works. Next rule, no sunglasses. Even when the sun is literally blinding you. Why? I don't know, maybe because they think students are hiding something behind their eyes. My one question with this rule is, does it also apply to blind students? This next one is crazy. No graphic tees. Some schools ban all graphic tees, even if they're completely appropriate. You could be wearing a t-shirt that says, I love puppies, and it would still get dress coded. I would have just had to drop out if this was at my school because that would have meant I couldn't wear my I love LeBron shirt to school every day. Next one, no distracting colors. I'm not even joking. Apparently some schools ban wearing neon shirts because they're too distracting. Honestly though, I agree with this one because whenever I was in school, I could not focus if I saw someone wearing a neon shirt. But then I graduated kindergarten. So after all this, you might be wondering, why do dress codes even exist? What's the point? Well, after doing my research, experiments, and testing, I have found out the true reason why dress codes exist. And did I just put glasses on to look smart while I was saying I did research? Who cares? Mind your business. But here's the real reason dress codes exist. It's never been about wearing inappropriate clothes that make it hard for boys to concentrate. If that were the case, sandals would have been banned a long time ago because let's be real, ladies and gentlemen, we all love feet. Am I right? No? Okay, I got a little carried away there, sorry. But anyways, what school dress codes is really about is the teachers. What do I mean by that? Well, I have a theory that dress codes are put in place because the teachers are getting distracted, not the students. So let me know what the craziest dress code rules are at your school. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go put on a hoodie, some ripped jeans, a tank top with my whole shoulder showing, and a neon yellow hat. And I'm gonna wear it all at the same time because I can.